Hey everyone, my name is Philip and welcome to my shop. Today I want to share with you how I like to pick and select parts. So right now I'm continuing out picking out parts for my rocking chair. So I'm going to show you a couple of pointers, things I like to look for, and how I can predict and control the grain so it best works in the piece that I'm using it for. So the first thing I like to do is obviously I have my templates, and every template is clearly marked, and it also has a diagram on it of the end grain, how it should look when I cut this part out. So for example, for this template, this is the shape. This doesn't really help me when I pick out the part necessarily. The nice thing about it is if there is a piece of sapwood or there's something a little funky about the wood and it falls within this template, well, I put this on there and I can tell straight away if it's going to be okay or if it's really going to be an issue. What this template does, it gives me the blank to make this part. And it's important that I have this blank so I can do the tenons and the mortises and stuff like that whilst everything's still square. So on this template, I've got it laid out very clear what this is going to be. And also I have it here, as if you're looking at the end of the board. I have the annual rings and how I want it orientated into the piece so that it gives me the look I'm going for. And what I mean by that, this is a good example. This is probably the most important piece in my rocking chair, is the crest rail. So as you can see, I have the crest rail sits like this and it has this nice curve on the top and the bottom. Well, I want the grain to follow that. So in this piece, you can see that grain's following that curve really nice. Now, it may not follow it dead on, but as long as it's going in the same direction, that's what's important to me. If my rail's doing this and the grain's doing this, it's going to jar with the eye and it's not going to look right. So for me to get that part, I know, looking at this piece, that when I get the blank, the big chunk of wood that this comes out of, the annual rings need to go like this. So front to back going downhill. And that way, I'm guaranteed this is my top side. I cut this, it's going to follow that shape perfectly. Another thing to point out, this is a really hard piece to select because it does need to be almost 45-degree rift sawn to get this over about 7 inches. That's kind of hard to get sometimes. And ideally, when you follow one annual ring, from one end to the other, it needs to be going pretty straight. So a lot of times I'm messing around a lot trying to select this part out. This takes quite a bit of time, but as you can see, it really makes the difference in the piece itself. So on these pieces that I'm working on today, this is my board I've selected for it. And like I've said, every template for every part, I make the blank template too. And all of these have the annual rings shown on how I want it to be selected out. The first thing I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the board and I'm going to cut the end grain and make sure I know what I'm looking at. It's really difficult. This is walnut and it's steamed, so this makes it a little more difficult to select parts. I usually don't plane across the top. This is usually just rough, but in this case it's just hard to tell what I'm dealing with. So I kissed this up with my electric hand plane real quick. You need to get down about a 1/16 to tell what's really going on. But the first step, hit the end grain, look at the annual rings. That'll tell you where the sap's going to be. The annual rings are like this. The sap's going to be on the outside of that tree. So that's what I'll do. I'll flip it over. I'm like, okay, the outside edges, that's where the sap will be. A lot of times I can tell straight away from the end grain if there's sapwood. And if I see a little, then I'm going to hit it up and this will really tell me what's going on. The reason I need to go about 1/16 deep is because, like I said, this walnut is steamed. So it just makes it really hard to distinguish between the heartwood and the sapwood because of the steaming process. So once I've done that, now I can select, the side and the board and where I want my parts to come out. This board works really well, particularly down this edge. So in any plank, this is just plain sawn, you're going to have, where the annual rings are, usually on the outside edges, are going to be rift. So that's where these parts come out of really well. And you can see, I mean, it's not much of it. It's pretty straight throughout here and throughout here. Unfortunately, this side, which looks pretty sweet, on the bottom side, it's all sapwood. And also, throughout this piece, towards the bottom, it's totally sap. So that whole chunk at the bottom end, I really can't use on this rocking chair. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just show you, what I'm looking for as far as cutting the end grain, and I'll try to get a, close up so I can show you the sapwood and the heartwood. You don't need to have a Festool track saw to do this. This is something I bought for a particular job, but I found it incredibly useful. I pretty much no longer use my chop saw. It's a lot easier for me to bring the saw to the piece itself. So I'm just going to trim this end, take off a ½ inch or so. And I know, I can see there's a check right here, so there's a crack in the end of this wood. I'm not going to keep trimming that back because I don't need this entire piece. I know that my templates are going to come in, and I'm going to nestle. There's 3 parts to this, and I'm going to nestle it around that check. And like I said, I can't use this. This is sap. I can get those 2 parts and then, continue down the board. One thing I would point out too, this is all to my, like I said, my Morley rocking chair, which you can go on my website and see that. It's philipmorleyfurniture.com. But anytime you're doing any part, so what I'm concentrating on right now is the seat itself, the frame for the seat. It actually has a leather slip seat, but it's got the frame going around. I want to get all the parts for that out of the same board. That way the color is going to look pretty good throughout. Instead of me grabbing, 2 parts out of here and grab another board and get 2 parts out of there, it's going to look a little different. It's always difficult. If you can get, Bayou and Flitch, that's awesome, but I can't always do that. So these boards will vary from board to board. All right, so now I've done that cut. I'm going to pull the camera up and show you what I'm looking at the end here. Okay, guys, so this is what I was talking about. So I just trimmed off the end, and it's a little hard to tell, but you can see pretty clear right through here. That's all sapwood. So the annual rings are doing this, and towards this end, that's sapwood. And, I could see on the edge of this board, I knew that was going to be sapwood straight away. But I have, about 6 inches or so of good heartwood. There's that check I was talking about, not a big problem. So I know I just need to keep away from this edge. Now, there's nothing wrong with sapwood as far as, integrity. It's just the look, and that's not the look I'm going for in this chair. Okay, guys, so that was selecting wood. Obviously, this is a very small aspect of the selection process in this rocking chair, but I wanted to share this with you and just talk about a little bit of the importance of selecting wood. Usually, this is something that is left out by most woodworkers, and especially myself when I first started out. I wanted to know how to do the joinery and what machines and how to tune stuff up. And I ignored the fact that one of the most important pieces of furniture building is how you select your wood. You can build a beautiful piece and select the wood very poorly, and it's just not going to look very good. So that's what I hope in my pieces, that you can see that. And even if most people don't recognize it, I hope they just recognize that it has a nice balance. So I hope you found this video useful, and like always, please don't hesitate to hit that like and share and subscribe to my channel, and I really appreciate it. Cheers.
you.